welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Vashi Sarah, and you're tuned in to another episode of All the Things, where we literally talk about all the things. Before we jump into today's episode, let's talk about our sponsor for today. Our sponsor is brand new, and I'm excited to talk about them. They are 7 Weeks Coffee. 7 Weeks Coffee is a pro-life company. Their goal, their mission is to save the unborn by providing specialty coffee and donating 10% of every purchase to pro-life pregnancy centers around the world. So use my code VASHTI10, that is VASHTI10, for 10% off your first order. So let's jump into today's episode, how I got the man of my dreams. I'm sure y'all are curious about this. It's not going to be a long, exhaustive episode. I know I talk about relationships quite a bit. I talk about my marriage quite a bit. But I thought, why not just address the 3 things that I did do and the 3 things that I didn't do in order to get the man of my dreams. So let's talk about the first one, the things that I did not do. I didn't date around. And I know for some people that might come across as just like very rude or insulting. I don't see, at least I didn't see, and I still don't see the point of dating around. Whenever I met Jared, I kind of knew pretty instantly that he was the person I was going to pursue for the rest of my life. We met at one of our best friend's wedding. Long story short, he said hi. I said hi back. Denied him a couple times. We went on a date or 2, and then the rest is history. But while I was talking to him, before we even became boyfriend and girlfriend, before we even DTR, determined the relationship, I was committed to him. I knew that I wasn't going to be talking to anyone else. So any other guy friends that I had, I kind of shut that immediately. Even if I wasn't interested in them or they weren't interested in me, I didn't text them one-on-one or went out with them one-on-one and go on coffee, just coffee hangs or coffee runs. That wasn't a thing, because I knew my focus was my husband, what I hope would be my soon to be husband. So I didn't date around. I didn't look around. I didn't have a ton of guy friends. I pretty much just said, I'm committed to this guy. Yes, I had guy friends in the sense of I had acquaintances. We'd hang out in corporate settings and group settings, but one-on-one, that was just not a thing. I didn't entertain that. And I know for some of you, you might think that's a little bit too extreme, and that or that approach may be, just a little bit radical because you don't know yet if that's your spouse, or you didn't know yet that would have been your husband. Yes, I get that. But I feel like what you do in your dating or in your even just talking, is a reflection of what you're going to carry out through dating and marriage. So I just wanted to cut that off immediately and not allow any other person to speak into my relationship. So that's one of the things that I didn't do. I didn't date around, and I didn't have a ton of guy friends when Jared and I started talking and then eventually started dating, and obviously now married. But something that I also didn't do, I didn't give up my life. I didn't change my schedule to fit his. I didn't change my desires to fit his desires. Now, I was open to learning about what he enjoyed doing. I was open and still am, because we're both still learning so much about each other. But I opened myself up to the curiosity and learning what he likes, his dislikes, his the activities he does on the side, his hobbies, what he enjoys talking about. I tried to engage in, or at least listen and nod my head. And even if I didn't understand, it's like, okay, well, at least I'm engaging. But I didn't change who I was. I didn't stop my life. I didn't give up my life. So I still worked out. When I worked out, I didn't change my schedule to work out with him. If it happened to work out, it did. Great. That's awesome. But I still kept me. I remained an RA. I didn't quit things and just, I'm infatuated with this guy. He's the center of my life. No. I still worked. I still worked on me. I still attended the same church that I had been attending. I didn't change my life for him until we got engaged. That's when things started shifting, and we had to realize, okay, well, or we're going to be joining lives. We need to give in this area. We need to give up in this area. We need to shift things and change our focus and where we're wanting to plant roots. So that's the only time things shifted. But before that, I still remained who I was. I still traveled. I still, had my girlfriend hangouts. I still did all the things. I still hung out with my family. I didn't exclude myself from my family because I was dating a guy, or talking and then eventually dating a guy. But yeah, so that's another big one that I did not do. What I didn't do, I didn't follow all the rules, which might seem surprising for a rule follower like myself. But here's the thing. Whenever you're dating, you will be faced, especially if you're trying to follow dating in an ethical, moral, biblical standard. If that's your goal, is to walk through dating without failing. That was Jared and I's goal. And we did dating successfully, in my opinion. We did it right. We did dating to engagement and marriage. We did it right. It was hard, but we didn't do everything right. There were some moments where we failed. We got too close to our boundaries, and then we had to step back and reevaluate things. But we did it right, and I'm proud of that. But what we didn't do, or what I didn't do, was follow all the rules. So there were some things that were give and take. For a while there, I didn't want him to hold my hands, and then I eventually gave in and I felt comfortable. And then for a while there, I didn't want him to kiss me, and then giving in sounds awful. Giving in has a negative connotation, but eventually I gave him the permission and said, yes, I'm ready for it. But I didn't follow all my rules. And that's not to say I settled or I gave in or I failed, but I didn't follow all the rules the way I thought in my head it should be followed. I had to reevaluate, restructure those rules as I became a little bit more comfortable in trusting with him. So that's what I mean by that. Now, let's talk about the things I did do. But before we talk about the things I did do, let's talk about our second sponsor for today. Yes, you know who they are. They're Every Life Diaper Company. Every Life is pro-life. Every Life is for babies. They're for families. They don't have toxins. They don't have parabens. They don't have phthalates. It's just clean, a very clean brand for your baby. And just to know that you're supporting an ethical company with a mission and vision that is in line with your faith, and they are faith-based. So use my code VASHTI10, that is VASHTI10, for 10% off your first order. All right. Now let's talk about the things that I did do, things that I did follow through with, and I'm proud to say that I kept in our relationship, and what helped me, I believe, to find the man of my dreams. And that is, I kept Jesus first. I never allowed Jared to become the center of my attention. I never allowed him to become my God, my idol. I think that's very easy for young women, especially for women who have a past that is scarred or have been abused, molested, raped, or have had trust issues, daddy issues. Any of those things, any of those categories, any traumatic experiences, I feel like can cause a female to allow whatever man is in their life or walks into their life to become the center of their attention, to become their idol or their God, because they finally have a resting place. They finally have a safety net, a man or a source of security. I did not allow that because I didn't want to bring in that victim mindset into our relationship. So I allowed Jesus to be first, and I allowed him to always remain first. And whenever I saw I was placing my trust in Jared a little bit more than the Lord, I had to step back, reevaluate things, and go back to the Lord and ask him to redirect my heart. So I do think that's very, very important, especially for women who have come from traumatic experiences, that you learn to put Christ first, because at the end of the day, Christ is the one that will sustain you in marriage. in dating and in marriage, your significant other is bound to fail. They aren't perfect. And I feel like whenever we perceive the person that we're pursuing as perfect and they do fail, then, especially for those with a traumatic past, it's more likely that we'll shut down and we'll draw back to our trauma. We'll draw back to our default response in trauma. So it's important to heal. It's important to place Jesus first. It's important to place Christ first in your life, and then that person second. That way, when that person fails, because they're bound to fail, you don't view them as God that failed you. You view them as human, and it's normal. It's natural for humans to fail. So that's one thing I did do. And I do believe that got me the man of my dreams, because that also respects him. That also allows him to realize I don't think and I don't expect him to be perfect. He's great. And I always joke with him and I say he's 99.99% perfect. He can't be 100%, because then I'm placing him as the savior of my life. And he definitely isn't. But it also respects him, and it gives him that peace of heart to know, I can and I will fail, and my wife will be by my side. She won't give up on me. So the other thing I also did was I allowed Jared to lead from the beginning. I allowed him to lead me, and I allowed him to show me how to be led. I think for very strong-willed women like myself, it's hard to give up that role and to give in to that role, or give into the person that we're pursuing, giving him that place in our life. I've always been, I will do it myself. I can do it myself. I will always do it myself. I know the best route. I know the best way to get it done. But whenever Jared came into my life, I allowed him to lead. And I think what helped too is he's such a manly man. He's such a man's man. He's not a wimp. He's not weak. He takes authority. He's very assertive. He knows what he wants. He's very sure in who he is. And that definitely helped too. But I giving up my role, giving up my authority and right wasn't a form of weakness, but rather it was a form of strength, saying, I trust you to lead. I trust you will be the man that I know you are and are capable of being. So that's something else I did. And I think that is powerful. I think that's important for us to do as women, is to give up that role and allow the man to lead. Because if you don't do that, if you don't allow him to lead, you strip him from his manhood. And essentially it's also like an insult, that he's not capable of leading. And too often I see women who wear the pants in a relationship, and that's something that I definitely don't want to do. I don't want to wear the pants in a relationship. I don't want to be the one calling the shots and having my husband whipped. I feel like that's just, I don't know. I don't want to say embarrassing, because it is embarrassing, but it's also insulting for a man, because I also have brothers, and knowing that I have 3 brothers, I don't ever want to be the sister that does that to her husband, because I don't ever want my sister-in-laws to be doing that to my brothers. So very important to allow them to lead in the beginning. I'm not saying the first date, which yes, the man should pay, the man should initiate and do all the things, but allow the man to lead whenever, especially when you know this is the person you want to pursue towards marriage. Let them lead. You have to give that right up. You have to. Otherwise, it would just create a lot of complications moving forward. And I've seen that time and time again. The last thing that I did do that I think contributed or helped or contributed, my husband corrected me, or not corrected me. He told me a couple weeks back when I said contribute, that the American way of saying this word is contribute. Yeah. I think that's what it is. I get it mixed up now that he's brought that to my attention. So side note, I say contribute because I come from Belize, and the British way of saying that word is contribute. The American way is to say contribute. I think that's what it is. Anyways, that was just a side note, tidbit, something that I learned a couple weeks back from my very lovely husband, who let me know, warning, you might get some questions about why you say that word the way you do. So anyways, the last thing that I did was I worked on me. I worked on me physically, I worked on me emotionally, and I worked on me mentally. The reality is who you are is who you will attract. Very simple. Who you are is who you will attract. You can't expect to get someone who is spiritually grounded if you're not spiritually grounded. You can't expect to get someone who is physically astute if you're not physically astute. Now, there are times when that can definitely happen. Opposites attract. Everyone has different tastes, but when you get down to the deep core of things, like if you want someone that is disciplined, that is financially stable, that just has their quote unquote crap together, you probably should have your crap together too. You probably should be working on you mentally, emotionally, physically, because first one, mentally, if you're not working on yourself mentally and you bring in that baggage in your relationship, you're doing a disservice for that person who's pursuing you. You're probably just going to stress them out, and it's not worth it. It's going to bring on added strain, added stress to a relationship, when a relationship in itself, that requires a lot of work. So work on you before you bring in your baggage into another setting, into another season that requires work on its own. So mentally, emotionally, same thing. Deal with those things, deal with those hurts and pains, go to counseling, go do therapy, have a mentor, and work those things out. Don't wait until a relationship comes around to address and deal with those things. Physically, if you want to lose weight or if you want to be comfortable in your skin, work on that now. I was so determined to work on me that whenever Jared came around, it was a habit. I had already established that lifestyle, and I kept that going. I kept that a part of me even while we were dating. And I felt like that definitely contribute to finding the man of my dreams. And he'll say from time to time, that's what caught his eye. I wasn't like every other girl. No, I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just repeating what my husband has told me several times. But he told me I wasn't like every other girl. He could tell that I was different. He could tell that I was working on me. And interestingly enough, when we met each other, I was working on me. He was working on himself. He had recently, within the year and a half before we met, he had recently gone through a breakup. And from that breakup, he had a revelation and a God moment that he needed to work on himself. And he is thankful for that breakup. I think it was a 3-month long, maybe 4-month long relationship, but it taught him so much of what he wanted in a spouse. And it also taught him what he needed to be in order to find the spouse of his dreams. So I say all of that to say, in order to find the man of your dreams, it requires do's and don'ts. And you have to choose what you will do. You have to choose what you won't do. And it's daily. I had to daily choose those do's and don'ts. And I had to daily work on myself. So I hope this is encouraging. It's a very short, sweet episode. We have plenty other episodes coming your way. I still have to address and sit down and talk about my pregnancy journey, my postpartum journey. We have episodes coming talking about what it is to be a man. We have episodes talking about being on the mission field. We have plenty others, addictions, how to break addictions, and many other things that we'll be addressing on this podcast. But for now, I will see y'all next week. Remember to like, subscribe, do all the things. I love y'all. And again, I'll see y'all next week.